Hello and welcome to another edition of Chesapeake Hockey Week. I am your host, Scotty Wazz. Welcome. Hope you guys are well. Things are not really thawing. It's really still cold out, and we're going to get another blast of cold. It's going to be a great time, but it is winter. We should expect that, and it is hockey season as we get actually winding down to the end of the season. Only a few weeks left for club teams. Stevenson's and Hood also having situations that are winding down too. So we got a few weeks left together. So let's enjoy them, and we'll start off by going to the Stevenson men's side of things. They had a full weekend, a home game, an away game, and a resumption game happening all the way through. I'll start with the home game against Misericordia, as Stevenson looking to get things back on the right track. They get started early. They get started late in the first period. Under 5 minutes to go, John Musella getting on the board. A breakaway from Matt Yeager gets stopped. Musella there, Johnny on the spot, and he pops home the opening salvo. Yeager and Morris Schneider getting the assist. Stevenson up 1-0. In the second, midway point through the second, Caden Smith would make that 2-0 as Musella gets it out to Yeager. Yeager gets it to Smith, who's at the side of the net for a tap-taparoo, and that makes it 2-0 for the Green Horses, and they just kept dominating, really tipping the ice in their general direction as they were just, like I said, peppering at the Misericordia net. Holy Dinah, that is something else. And we got to say it twice this episode. But Greg Spitznagel would get things going in the third, 3:47 into the third period. He would get a puck from Carson Galen from out of the corner, and Spitznagel using some quick hands, goes backhand, lights the lamp, makes it 3-0 there. Galen and Jack Meloff getting the assist on that. It's 3-0, and the defense would take it from there as they just clamp things down, only allowing 20 shots on Lewis Finnegan, who gets the shutout in the win. 3-0 is the score there. So Stevenson gets their weekend off to a good start. However, they would be on the road on Saturday, going up to Wilkes-Barre Scranton, and they would take on Wilkes, and unfortunately not the result they wanted to get. Cam Lowe gets 2 goals for Wilkes in the first period, 4 minutes and change apart, and that would put them up 2-0. But at the end of the first period, Caden Smith nets one with 1:01 left on the clock. Jack Carlson and John Musella on the assist. That made it 2-1 going into the intermission. Nothing happened in the second period, though, but in the third period, Trevor Belak and Christian Bloomquist would be the determining factors in this one. They scored less than a minute apart, and that would be all she wrote in this one as Stevenson drops this one 4-1. They outshot the Wilkes team by a count of 31-28. Ford DeLoss making 25 saves in this, but not enough. They go down 4-1. They stayed in Wilkes-Barre, I'm pretty sure, because they had a makeup game on Monday. So why drive back Sunday just to drive back on Monday? They took on Misericordia again. So this was the game that was disrupted when they had the bad ice. There was 11 minutes left in the second period when they decided to call the game off just because the ice was cracking all over the place. So this was way back game 7, because the stats, it started on the 15th of November, and we start from there. So in the second period, the prolonged second period, Misericordia gets on the board with 1:16 left as Zach Michi gets the goal, makes it 1-0 for Misericordia. And it wasn't until late when Stevenson would tie it back up as Blake Benson just gets a nice little pass at the point from Aiden McDowell, and he wheels through the center and rips one home. He ties it up with 2:53 remaining on the power play goal. McDowell and Connor McDonald getting the assist. It is 1-1. The rest of the period solved nothing. They go to overtime, and then 2:22 into the overtime period on a delayed call. Stevenson had an extra attacker out as Misericordia were getting a little penalty there. But Jack Carlson's shot from the point, almost a shot pass, gets tipped by the heel of the stick of Caden Smith. He puts it home, 2-1 for Stevenson. Blake Benson getting a secondary assist on this one. They win 2-1 in this very, very weird situation of a game. Ford DeLoss making 16 saves overall as Stevenson takes 2 wins out of the weekend and they will look ahead to what they have next weekend, which will be a away and home. They'll be at King's College on Friday, and they'll be taking on Newman on Saturday. And then looking at the rest of the schedule, they have 3 more games after that and one last home game next Friday night. So 5 more games remaining for Stevenson as they are looking at that MAC championship, looking at the MAC playoffs, looking at all that other fun stuff. So we will follow them overall before they get to that. So 5 more games left. We'll talk about this past weekend's when everything comes to fruition. The Stevenson women and the Hood women took aim at each other. The I-70 Showdown happened in Frederick as Stevenson traveled up there. And Stevenson has been out shooting their opponents a lot. They've been getting a lot of offense, haven't been able to break through on the goal sign just yet. And boy, howdy, did they save it all up for Friday afternoon in Frederick as they win a big one. Started off in the first period, 3:18 in. Carly Barwick gets on the board first. A nice little pass from behind the net from Abby Smith after a great forecheck by the Stevenson offense. Smith gets out to Barwick. Barwick pots it home. It's 1-0. Kylie Chandler getting the secondary assist on that. Stevenson up 1-0. It would be that way through the rest of the first period, although Stevenson out shooting Hood by a count of 9-6 on this one. But the second period is where things really open up. Start off 3:45, and Ashley Morris of Stevenson gets on the board. A nice little board battle won there by Megan Croyle. She gets it out to Morris, puts it in the back of the net. 2-0 Stevenson. Kaide Spawn gets the secondary assist for Stevenson, and we are 2-0. A minute and 3 seconds later, Carly Barwick gets another one on the board on the shorthand. A turnover in the D zone by Hood, and leads to a little mini breakaway for Barwick. She little Deke Stangles pots it home. It is 3-0 for Stevenson, and that would be the end of the night for Maggie Rivala as she gives way to Cameron Sonner on that. So a ton of a rough go about it from that, and things got a little bit of a response there on the power play midway through the period for Hood as Renata Petrella gets on the board, breaks that score, streak. A low shot, and how low was it? Somehow the physics worked. That hit off the defender's skate and popped up and over the goaltender's glove for Stevenson, and that's how it goes. It's 3-1 for Hood, but it was short-lived as the end of the period. Stevenson gets 2 quick goals, a minute and 30 apart. First, Jalen Jones makes it 4-1 for Stevenson. A great keep-in at the half wall by Maggie Dean, and she gets it across to Jalen Jones. Jones gets her own rebound, and it's 4-1 for Stevenson. Then Megan Croyle getting in on the goal-scoring side of things, and she gets a rebound at the side of the net from a Maggie Dean shot and pots it in. It's 5-1. Kiana Baker with the secondary assist. Stevenson goes into the second intermission up 5-1. It would keep going there as Jalen Jones pots in another goal on the power play, 2-11 into the frame. Just a scrum at the side of the net. Gets poked in. Jones the last one to touch it, and that makes it 6-1. Kira Otto and Kaide Spoon gets the assist on that one. And then 2 minutes and change later, Jones completes her hat trick as another loose puck at the side of the net, or at the front of the net because there was a scrum at the side, pops in front. Jones gets it, puts it in at 7-1 with Ashley Morris getting the assist there. 12:09 into the third period. Ella Phillips for Hood cuts the lead to 7-2 after just a rebound kind of squeaked through the pads of Emily Carson and finds Ella Phillips there at the side of the net. She pots it home. Alyssa Wilson and Sophie Ancona get the assist there. It is 7-2, but with under 5 minutes remaining, Jalen Jones adds her fourth as a rebound gets poked in, goes to the goalie's pads and into the back of the net. 8-2, the score on Jones's fourth. Otto and Dean getting assists there, and that's all she wrote. 8-2 for the Green Horses, and a big win for them. Emily Carson making 24 saves. Maggie Rivala finished with 10 saves, while Cameron Sonner finishes with 24 saves. So a big showdown there, And, yeah, Stevenson really broke through on that one. They hope to take things, keep it going on Saturday night as they traveled or they traveled back home to play Wilkes. And Wilkes, the top team in the MAC, and it was a tough one. No scoring after one, but Renee Neg gets 2 goals in under 2 minutes apart for Wilkes to makes it 2-0 for Wilkes. And it wasn't until late when Stevenson really gets rolling. We're talking under 4 minutes remaining when Kaide Spone gets with the extra attacker with the empty net. A great face-off win back by Emma Demand to Spawn. Spawn rips it home 2-1. In that one, you couldn't think, okay, well, can they do this? Maybe pull this off. A minute 20 later, Kiana Baker gets on the board with the extra attacker. A good keep in by Jalen Jones. Gets it over to Megan Croyle. Croyle centers it to the front. Batted home by Baker. And it is now 2-2. We go into overtime, but 41 seconds in, Jordan Ferry for Wilkes ends it. Puts it home. It is 3-2 the final in that one. A tough go about it, a valiant effort in the comeback, but not enough. They do get a little point out of that, so that's not too terrible. Emily Carson with 44 saves in this one. The women will take on King's College on Friday and then travel up to Aston, PA to take on Newman. They also have 5 games left. That kind of mirrors what's going on with the men's side of things. So they got 5 games left on the board, including the one makeup game against Arcadia. So fun times to be had there, and we will follow all that up, what happened this weekend, next week, because that's how things go. When we look to Hood, they look to bounce back after that pretty tough loss they took on Kings, and Kings not having the best year, so Hood took a little bit of advantage of that. Midway through the first period, Emily Cross connects on the power play, a point shot off the face-off, a good win back. Emily Cross gets it, rips it, puts it home. Alyssa Wilson with a secondary assist. Maya Cheeseborough with the primary assist. It's 1-0 for Hood. Wasn't until midway through the second when Hood would strike again. Megan Savage, who wears number 21, and I think that's a great 21 Savage reference. Got to like that. She took a little skate for herself in the offensive zone, pulled up at the right circle when traffic formed in front of the goalie, and ripped it home to make it 2-0. Dakota Ormston and Alyssa Wilson with the assist there. It's 2-0 for Hood. And then late in the game, Kings trying to get something going, but they're trying to pull the goalie. But after a block by Sophie Ancona, she wins a foot race, puts it home into the empty net, 3-0, and a big win and a big bounce back for Hood College there. Maggie Ravala with a great bounce back game, 17 saves, putting up a 0 on the goals against score sheets. So there you go for Hood, a nice bounce back game. They split their weekend and continue their really, really solid season so far in their second go around in the conference. They also have 5 games left. They will take on Lebanon Valley up in PA and then come back home on Saturday to take on Alverna. So it should be a good one going for there. So enjoy that, and we will come back next week and tell you all about it. The Naval Academy Midshipmen had a home-and-home against George Mason this weekend, and they would host first against the Patriots. Got started off not so great for Navy as Lance Jasanis gets a goal 58 seconds in for George Mason. First off, weird jersey matchup. Green against navy blue. Very hard to decipher while watching with the camera angle it was. So not a great choice. But anyway, 1-0 George Mason under a minute into the frame. Navy would get one back. It would take them a minute, though. They had plenty of shots, though, outshooting George Mason 23-9 in the first period. And Jason Fisher would be the first one to break through after that. 12:31 into the frame. A rebound at the side of the net off a Sam Zimmerman shot. Fisher puts it home for his 8th of the year. Zimmerman's 4th assist. Navy ties this game up. Less than 3 minutes later, Mason Rudin gets on the board with his 3rd of the year. A rebound off of the back wall from a Josh Reed shot, and he just banks it in, pinballs it in for his 3rd of the year. Reed's 5th assist of the season. Navy up 2-1, but it was short-lived as 19 seconds after that, Tyler Rothermund gets his 7th of the year to tie it up, and that's where we would go into into the first intermission. In the second period, though, Navy gets in quick succession in the first quarter of the period. Jack Toshel gets his first of the year as he rips home a wrister from the top of the circles and puts it home. Andrew Pencha's 11th assist, Butler Chesn's 11th assist. Navy up 3-2. 51 seconds later, Benny Wald gets his first of the year as he puts another wrister at the top of the circles through a screen this time to find Pater there. Dylan Nullhouse with his 5th assist on that. Navy up 4-2. Less than a minute after that, Travis Pyler gets his 6th of the year to get George Mason to within 1. But with 3:08 remaining, Ian Cady nets his 5th of the year for Navy as a second rebound off a point shot. Just bing, bang, boom, bouncing around in the front. Dylan Nullhouse had the point shot. Douglas Carr had the first attempt. Ian Cady finishes it off for his 5th of the year. Carr's 2nd assist, Nullhouse's 6th assist. Navy up by a count of 5-3 after 2 periods of play. And just past the midway point in the third period, Bobby Cunningham nets his 8th of the season after a nice little passing play between him and Sean Milanete. A little bit of giving Goski in the back of the net at Goski. 8th for Cunningham. Sean Milanete's 11th assist. And Navy would go on to win this one by a count of 6-3. 49-22 were the shots in favor of Navy. Only 3 power plays for Navy, so take that into account as it was. Balin Smargazzi gets 19 saves in the victory for the Naval Academy. Much needed points on that one there for certain. They would then travel down to Northern Virginia to take on George Mason, and nothing happened in the first period. I'm sure they were all worn out after that, the franticness of the Friday game. So had to wait until under 5 minutes, or actually just around 5 minutes left in the second period when Butler Chesn scores his 18th of the year from Patrick Laughlin and Andrew Pencha. Laughlin's 19th assist, Pencha's 12th assist made it 1-0 Navy. That's how it would stand through 2 periods. Navy outshooting George Mason at the time, 23-13. So really getting the shots on, and they would outshoot him in the third too, 13-8. But George Mason gets 3 goals. Starting at 4:19, Dylan Thorne gets his 5th. Then Michael Miranda, less than a minute later, gets his 2nd before Quinn Alley gets his 5th of the year into an empty net. And George Mason had plenty of chances on the power play in that first period. Didn't connect, but they connected in the third when they actually were shorthanded a lot of it. So Navy drops this one 3-1. Gavin Beal with 18 saves in this one, and not a tough go about it, all things considered. So Navy's going to look ahead as they take on Towson at home on Friday only for that one. So check it out if you are down there at the McMullen Ice Arena. See that interstate matchup. It was a fun game between those two teams when it was up at Ice World. Towson goes up 3-0, and then they drop that one 6-3. So it was a wild time. I'm sure it'll be even more wilder at the McMullen Sports Complex. Speaking of Towson, they had back-to-back games. They traveled down to Virginia Tech and took on the Hokies there. James Harwood would get things started at 5:38 in his 20th of the year from Jeremy Wilson, his 23rd assist of the year. Towson up 1-0, and then Gavin Peduzzi for Virginia Tech gets his 12th of the year with 4:33 remaining in the frame to tie it up before they're done. Now, of course, I'll preface this: Virginia Tech is a D2 school against the D1 Towson, so let's take that into account in all this. So, rightly or wrongly, anyway, we'll use your own illusions. 141 into the second, James Harwood gets his 2nd of the game, 21st of the year from Evan Owenby, his 4th assist. Towson up 2-1, and then Jeremy Wilson gets his 14th of the season from Keegan Jensen, his 14th assist. James Harwood, 16th assist. Towson up 3-1 before Cameron Kahazi with his 8th of the year for the Hokies to get them to within 1 before the third period. And then Harwood again would finish off his hat trick, his 22nd of the year from Jeremy Wilson, his 24th, 5:12 into the period. That puts them up 4-2. But then Virginia not giving up on this when Austin Hearn gets his 10th of the year moments later after Harwood's goal cuts the lead to 1. And then with 1:28 remaining, Gavin Peduzzi gets his 13th and his second of the game to tie it up. We would push it to overtime, and that's when Matthew Tulo, 2:21 in, gets his 10th of the year for Virginia Tech, and the Hokies take this one 5-3 in thrilling fashion. Sean Knutson gets hung with the loss, 50 saves in this one, as Towson gets outshot 55-44. Tough go about it, but they would go back home to Ice World. They would take on Temple University, and a big matchup here. Lots of goals to be scored, and Temple took advantage in the first period. They scored 3 goals. First starting with Mitchell Elliott getting his 7th, and then Joseph Stelaccio getting his 6th, before Keegan Jensen and Towson gets his 13th of the year. James Harwood's 17th assist, Ryan Travis' 4th assist to make it 2-1, but then with 5:06 remaining in the frame, Brendan Barrett ends that period with his 15th of the year to put Temple up 3-1. Then we had a frantic second period. Brendan Barrett starts the period 4:38 in. He gets his 16th of the year. But less than 2 minutes later, Jeremy Wilson, his 15th of the year on the power play from Keegan Jensen, his 15th assist. James Harwood's 18th assist. And Towson trying to claw back into this one. But Mitchell Elliott would get his 2nd. And then on the power play, Julian Rudolph will get his 6th of the year. Temple up by a count of 6-2. But Towson not giving up on this one. James Harwood would get a shorthanded goal after franticness of penalties in that mid part of the frame for Towson. Harwood would get his 23rd on the shorthanded. Jeremy Wilson's 25th assist. And then moments later, with only 2:20 remaining, Jeremy Wilson gets his 16th of the year from John Rubush, his 2nd assist, and Caleb Amadon, his 7th assist on the power play. The lone power play they have, or the second power play they have in the period, gets that going. However, Julian Rudolph would get another one with 1:18 remaining on the power play, and Temple would go into break up 7-4. In the third period, Wilson notches another one, his hat-trick goal, his 17th of the year. Harwood's 19th assist. Tyler Schemmel with his 6th assist. Towson trying to get back into it, but then Brandon Barrett finishes his hat-trick for Temple, his 17th of the year. And that makes it too many to not enough at this point. James Harwood would add another one, his 24th, his 2nd of the game. Braden Humphrey's 7th assist. Jeremy Wilson's 26th assist. But with under a minute remaining, Jordan Jenich gets his 5th of the year. Temple wins this one 9-6. They outshoot Towson 56-45. Anthony Brooks makes 47 saves in the defeat. So it's the only game they have this week is against Navy, a Friday-only schedule. You can check that out at the Brigade Sports Complex, or check out the Brigade Sports Complex YouTube channel. They will have all the action in that one. The Maryland men's side had a frantic week. They had they had 2 games of their own, and then they had that makeup game from the snowstorm, and they had a lot of goals going. And Friday night was frantic, and not the good kind of frantic, like a very how the hell did we get here kind of frantic. Great first period on senior night for Maryland as they get going. 21 seconds in, Sean Amon gets a redirect off a Blake Warner shot, and that's his 4th of the year for Amon, his 4th of the year. Blake Warner's 4th assist. Jack Hudrin, his 4th assist. Maryland up 1-0 early. And then Maryland gets 3 goals in a span of 2 minutes and 32 seconds, starting with Caleb Craven. He gets his 4th of the year on his own rebound. A long-range rebound, picks it up in the slot, puts it home. His 4th of the year. Warner's 5th assist. Brian Teskey's 10th assist. Maryland up 2-0. Then Thomas Pilkington gets on the board on this one. A nice keep-in by the Maryland defense and Travis DeShane and Brian Teskey keeping it alive. They get it over to Pilkington. He turns around and fires for his 4th of the year. Teskey's 11th, Travis DeShane's 11th assist as well. Maryland up 3-0. And then to end it all out, Teskey gets on the board as just a slapper from the top of the right circle goes into the back of the net. His 7th of the year. James Romps with his 3rd assist. Cameron Horan, his 3rd assist. Maryland up 4-0 after 1 period of play. They were out shooting Delaware 22-7 after 1. In the second period, a lot of goals in this one, but Maryland had to share some space with Delaware in this one. Pilkington would get his 2nd of the game, his 5th of the season. A nice rebound in front off a Grant Warner shot. Pilkington's 5th, Grant Warner's 9th assist. Michael Schreiben with his 5th assist. Maryland up 5-0. Brendan Stam would stop the bleeding shorthanded with his 14th of the year But on that same exchange, Brian Teske would get the lead back on a power play goal as a centering pass from Patrick Harnon from behind the net finds Teske. He rips it home for his 8th, Harnon's 10th assist, James Bonney's 9th assist. Maryland up 6-1. They're cruising. And then Brian Kramer scores. He gets his 10th of the year, 12:48 in. Makes it 6-2. Theodore Baum then scores. Makes it 6-3, his 3rd of the year. Then Joseph Legato gets his 6th of the year with under 4 minutes in the second. Makes it 6-4 going into the third period. And wouldn't you know it, a back-to-back Brian Kramer goals, 4:50 and 8:28 in. We're all tied up at 6. Referees put away the whistle in the third. No penalties whatsoever. We go into overtime. And in the dying seconds of overtime, only 19 seconds remaining, Grant Warner gets a rebound off a deflection from Brian Teske's shot that hit the post, dropped down in the crease. Warner was there, puts it home for his 6th. Teske's 12th assist, Pilkington's 6th assist. And a frantic game for Maryland. They get the victory by a score of 7-6. Patrick Adams getting 45 saves in the victory there. And a way to start off the weekend for certain. There'd be a day off, and then Maryland would travel up to Delaware at the Fred Rust Arena for the back end of the home and home. And they get started early, 5:02 in. James Bonney gets his 8th of the season. It just hits the crossbar from a Travis Deshane shot and drops right there. Bonney puts it home, almost like the game winner was on Friday night. Bonney gets his 8th of the year. Deshane's 12th assist. Patrick Harnon, his 11th assist. Maryland up 1-0. And then Blake Warner gets his 5th of the year, 11:09 into the frame. Just a scrum in front, a loose puck, and he puts it home for his 5th. Jack Hudrin with his 5th assist. Chase Wilson his 4th assist. Maryland up 2-0, kind of looking a little bit like Friday night, but Delaware would put an end to that as Andrew Plank scores with 4:55 remaining in the frame for his 5th, and then Justin Fox ties it up with under 3 minutes remaining with his 6th of the year. We're tied up going into the second. In the second, Patrick Olensky midway through his 10th of the year. That puts the Blue Hens up by a score of 3-2. And then in the third period, as we start there, 57 seconds into the frame, a rip from the right dot by Patrick Harnon gets it tied up at 3, all alone, his 9th of the year. And we are tied up, but 5:05, Andrew Plank gets his 2nd of the game on the power play to make it 4-3. Then Chase Wilson would tie it back up with his 3rd of the year. A great forecheck by the Maryland defense, or the Maryland forwards. They would create a lot of pressure, cause a turnover, and that turnover would get to Wilson in front from Blake Warner. Puts it home. Wilson's 3rd, Warner's 6th assist. Eli Petter with his 8th assist. We're tied up once again at 4s, but with 3:01 remaining, Aiden Starr gets his 3rd of the year, puts it home against Maryland, and then Anthony Greco with his empty net 12th of the year with 4 seconds remaining. That's the end of that one. Maryland drops this one 6-4 as Jack Pharisee with 25 saves in the loss. Then a rare Tuesday night game when the Rider Bronx would come down to take on the University of Maryland at the Ice World Complex, a makeup game from the Snowmageddon game that didn't happen. Started off early, 32 seconds in. Caleb Craven gets a rip from the top of the slot to put it home for his 5th of the year. Patrick Harnon, his 12th assist. James Bonney's 10th assist. Maryland up 1-0 early, but then Brendan McTanish gets his 15th of the year for Ryder, walking in, puts it home. It is 1-1 after 1. And then Maryland really took advantage of them after the midway point of the period, or towards the midway point of the period. 9:48 into the frame. Cameron Horn gets his 1st of the year, redirected in front from a Jack Rakakis shot. Rakakis' 4th assist, Mohan's 3rd assist on Horn's 1st goal. Maryland up 2-1. And Thomas Pilkington, who's come along in a big way here in the second half, he gets his 6th of the year. A nice centering pass from Grant Warner, missed everybody, gets to Pilkington on the circle. He rips it home for his 6th of the year. Warner's 10th assist. Michael Schreibman, his 6th assist, as Maryland now up 3-1. And then with under 5 minutes remaining, Brian Teske notches his 9th of the year. A good pinch in from the point and just kind of wheels a backhand from the slot, fools everybody in for his 9th of the year. Patrick Harnon's 13th assist, James Bonney's 11th assist. Maryland up 4-1 going into the second intermission, and Brandon McAnish would start scoring, trying to get the comeback for Ryder with his 16th of the year, but that was short-lived as a power play in the second half of the period gives Caleb Craven another goal, his 6th of the year. Just great puck movement on the power play and just a rip of a wrister from the top of the circles. That made it 5-2 at that point. Craven's 6, Brian Teskey's 13th assist, Patrick Harnon's 14th assist. Maryland up, like I said, 5-2. Sean Amon would get another goal a minute and 40 later, his 5th of the season. A wrister from the top right side goes in the back of the net, his 5th of the year. James Romps with his 4th assist, Cameron Horn his 4th assist. Maryland up 6-2. Alex Blazak would get his 8th of the year with under 4 minutes left in the game, but it would not be enough as Maryland wins this one 6-3. Jack Pharisee with 33 saves in the win. Maryland's now in the playoffs. They start playoffs this Friday, 3 p.m. against UNC Wilmington. That's today if you're listening to it as this drops. It'll be on the Maryland Hockey Network, so you can check that out on the YouTubes and all that stuff. So after this weekend, they have Crabpot, and that's it. And they're done for the year. Kind of crazy to think about when you look back at it. So should be a good one. ACCHL playoffs, always a tough one, and we will see how they fare next week. University of Maryland women had a couple of back-to-back matchups against the Army at home. Saturday-Sunday split. 2-12 in, Caitlin Weir of Army gets on the board first with her 2nd of the season, and then minutes later, Ellie Schminis gets her 2nd of the year for the Terps. Alexandra Borsch with her 4th assist. Maryland ties this up at 1. It would be that way until late in the second period on the power play when Eileen Kilcarey gets her 5th of the year from Danny Burr, her 8th assist. Maryland up going into the third period, but then Caitlin Weir, it's just her world, and we're just living in it. She gets her 3rd and 4th of the season, 3 minutes and change apart, finishes the hat trick, and gives Army the win as Army outshoots Maryland in this one, 42-31, and they pick up the win. Molly Hillier with 39 saves in the defeat. But Sunday is a new day. Yes, it is. And then it was the Evelyn Zubak show. Starting 8:45 into the frame, she gets her 5th for the Terps. Grace Wildberger with her 6th assist. Maryland up 1-0. And then less than 3 minutes later, the Zubak again. Her 6th of the year. Michelle Reynoso with her 2nd assist. Maryland up 2-0. No scoring in the second. Caitlin Weir, a 4-goal weekend for her as she gets a goal 4:46 into the third period to close the gap, cut the lead in half. But moments later, Michelle Radoff gets her 4th of the year for the Terps. Nia Craven gets her first assist of the year, and that's all she wrote. Terps win this one 3-1. Molly Hillier gets the win. Doesn't have a save record there, but a big win for Maryland. They will take on Delaware only on Friday, so we will tune into that and come back with what's happening there as the DVCHC playoffs are coming up around the corner in the next couple weeks. So we will see what happens, and this is for positioning. We will see how it all goes in the end of it all. The Loyola women were back in action this weekend. They made a Pennsylvania road trip. And they would go up to Slippery Rock University with not many people, as they only had 9 skaters and a goalie in net. Although Slippery Rock only did have only a few more, as they had 12 skaters and a goalie when all said and done. Unfortunately, though, Loyola would drop to Slippery Rock 8-2 in this one. They were outshot 46-7, but 2 goals from Carly Grimberg, as well as an assist from Brittany Weiss and Amelia Spinal. That would be the scoreline for the Ice Hounds, and Brianna Brady makes 38 saves in the losing effort. But they would go to IUP, take on Indiana University of Pennsylvania. They would actually get the better on the shot clock, even though they had about a third of the team that IUP had. And they, Loyola putting up a valiant effort in this one, even scoring first from Jenna Caruso getting an even strength goal. But then Shelby Harnish gets 2 goals, one in the minutes after Caruso's goal, and then one in the second period on the power play. and then she would complete her hat trick in the third period. Daphne Buzlian would try to get to within one. Grimberg with the assist there, but it was all she wrote on that one. Loyola drops this one 3-2. Brady making 29 saves in that. They will take on Towson this weekend in a Friday-only matchup, and we'll be back with all of that stuff that's fit to print there. Little D3 action. Navy had a big win over Stevenson, 4-3 in home ice, so a big win for them. And then a bigger win for UMBC as they beat Widener 21-3. It was like watching this online. It was just goal after goal after goal. It was kind of crazy to watch. So they do have a UMBC hockey network there. So if you want to check that out, check that out. It's an interesting watch for certain. So good on both those schools for getting it done. So congrats to them, and away we go. On to the players. A 4-assist night for Sam Annis on Thursday propels him even more into a nice little lead. 64 points in 52 games, including 41 assists for him and Nanaimo, as they had a little rough patch, but they get back onto the winning side of things on Thursday night. So always fun to see that. They had a big winning streak too, so can't complain all that much, I guess. Micah Berger had a goal on Friday night as Yale drops one to Cornell. So his sixth of the year, 13 points in 22 games for the second year out of Bethesda, Maryland. Lacey Eden had a goal and 3 assists over the weekend against University of Minnesota as Wisconsin gets a win and an overtime loss for their troubles. It's 20 goals, 33 assists for 53 points in 28 games for the Annapolis native and new captain of Wisconsin. Stephen Holliday gets himself a goal on Tuesday night for the Ottawa Senators. Puts him up at 4 goals this season for Ottawa, 11 points in 24 games with the Sens. Sean Kilcullen had an assist on Sunday as UMass Lowell lose to UMass Amherst by a score of 6-4. His 4th assist of the year, 7 points in 25 games for the Kensington, Maryland native. While Blake Montgomery had an assist on Friday night in a not a great weekend for Wisconsin as they get swept for the 3rd straight weekend as they lose to Minnesota this time. Blake Montgomery, 8 goals, 5 assists for 13 points in 26 games in his freshman season. And counter-flipping that UMass Amherst-UMass Lowell matchup, Cam O'Neill for UMass Amherst gets 2 assists on that one. That boosts him up to 7 assists on the season, 10 points in 21 games in his junior season for the Odenton, Maryland native. While Charlie Trethaway in the Beanpot qualifier, I think it is, or the semifinals they had, gets himself an assist, and that's his 6th of the season in his 26th game as BU wins in a shootout, and they will take on. They will go for the Beanpot Championship this Monday. So Trethaway a part of that. 27 points in 26 games for him this year. Grace Campbell and the Boston College Eagles drop one on Friday night against Maine. 4-3. Campbell made 35 saves in this one. That pushes her to 11-15-1 in her senior season. 278 goals against and a 924 save percentage there. And Andrew Takis gets in net for a victory on Saturday night against Yale. 28 saves in that one, pushing him to 2-3-1 on the season with a 258 goals against and a 919 save percentage. That'll do it for us. Thank you all for listening. I appreciate it. You guys have a great weekend. Stay warm out there, especially when it's getting cold out there. But the action at the rink is heating up. So check us out. Next week, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about some playoffs for the men's, the Terps men. We'll talk about the season winding down for the other squads. And we'll bring it all to you as we get ready for playoffs and the end of the season. Who knew? Who knew it would come this quickly? I'm Scotty Wazz. Take care of yourself and someone else. This has been Chesapeake Hockey Week, part of the Face Off Hockey Show Media Faction and Podcast Monsters. You guys have a great rest of your week. Stay cool, stay healthy, stay happy, and play that clutch and crab hockey when you can. We'll talk to you next time through. Peace.